What's up, guys? Welcome back to this week's episode of UnSpoken. I am so excited to have this guest here today sitting in front of me. I've been annoying him so much on Instagram and he's finally here in the room. So let me introduce you to this guy. He is a creative genius. He is a content creator. I need to get this right because it's a huge list. He's a content creator. He is a videographer. He's a father of 3. He's an elite gamer. And he's an ex-NRL player. Welcome to the podcast, Jordan Kahu.
Hello. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for being on today. Tell us a bit about your upbringing and where you're from.
So I was born and raised in Wellington, New Zealand, little place called Lower Hutt. Born at Lower Hutt Hospital. My mum and dad were both born and raised in Wellington as well.
Yeah.
And yeah, we kind of had just a super sporty background my parents did, and so growing up, naturally, I was just into it. And I was just a big rugby fan, and that kind of led me into other sports as well. When rugby finished, I'd be playing other sports in the summer and stuff like that. And yeah, my whole childhood was just pretty much aimed towards being an All Black. So everything I done, every decision I made when I was younger was towards that goal. And I'd get in trouble at school and I'd be scared that, that was going to affect me being an All Black. So I was super good at school, super good with my mates. I had some pretty naughty mates, would go out and I'd turn around and one of them would be tagging on the playground somewhere and I'd be down the street going running. And by the time they caught me, they'd be, what did you run for? I'm like, I don't want to do that. I'm not about that. So I was super goody two shoes for that one reason. And I had an older brother named Jared, and he was pretty much my idol growing up. I just wanted to be him. He was 3 years older, so he was always doing things before I was.
Yeah.
So I got all his hand-me-downs and everything like that. But yeah, he was super talented as well, so I always wanted to try and be like him, be better. And so we were super competitive, and yeah, that was pretty much my childhood, just super sporty background and little goody two shoes.
That's so cool. I love that. And I love that you're from Lower Hutt too. I'm from Footy.
No way.
So neighbours, P-Town, what's good? You mentioned it was always a dream for you to play for the All Blacks. So where did that love for sport come from?
I think from my dad was, just super a huge All Black fan. And because he wasn't that great at any sport, I think he kind of really wanted us to do well.
Yeah.
So we were training lots when we were younger, not just so much from our parents pushing us to train, but we were always down at the park kicking the footy around, and just naturally we just wanted to be the best. And I don't know if that was from our parents or what, or we just my brother and I just knew that we wanted to be, All Black. But my mum was pretty sporty as well. She was always it was always one of those things where do the kids get their sporting talents from? And mum and dad would always be like, it's from me, blah, blah. But yeah, they weren't, either of them weren't anything special. So I think they really wanted us to be pretty good. So I think that's where the love came from. And yeah, it's just natural, any kid growing up in Wellington in the 90s, you just wanted to be an All Black. It was a big era for sport then. Christian Cullens, Jonah Lomu, Tana Umanga kind of era.
Yeah.
And everyone just wanted to be those guys. So that's kind of where, the love for sport came off the back of my love for rugby at first.
Yeah, I feel growing up in New Zealand, because I grew up there till I was 11 as well. And I was in that era as well. And you would see all these All Blacks on the Weet-Bix boxes and stuff like that. So I feel it was a lot of people, probably still is, a lot of young kids' dream to become an All Black. It's such a big thing in New Zealand. Hey, what were some of the struggles you faced while you were chasing that dream? So you said you originally wanted to play for the All Blacks. Were you chasing that when you ended up falling into NRL?
I didn't really have too many struggles as a kid. I think the struggles came when I got to college. Because I was better than my age group, but not good enough to play in the best teams. I think that's where I kind of found myself, kind of losing track of what I wanted to be. I went to 2 high schools in Wellington. I went to Hutt Valley High, and then I went to Wellington Cole because the rugby team's better there. And I was quite young. I think I was like 15, but I was in the first 15 and in and out of the first 15, and I was getting like, 2 minutes here and there of a game, and I was just getting frustrated like crazy. And that was kind of like, I don't know, I guess the tipping point for me where I just wanted to play. And back in Wellington, you can't play sports outside of rugby or outside of your school. Like everything's at the school. So if you're playing rugby, you can't go and play like rugby for a club because it doesn't exist.
Oh, true.
Like there's no rugby, there's no club rugby for like school-aged kids in Wellington. So you literally had that team, that was it. And I was floating in and out of the first 15 and that, and then I think we got to one tournament, and I think I played like 2 minutes or 3 minutes in a whole like tournament. I was just fed up, and like we ended up winning the tournament. And I remember just after it, just storming back to the changing rooms. I wasn't even happy that we won. I was like filthy I didn't get to play, and then I was like,
you didn't get to play at all?
Nah, I didn't get to play at all in the final. And I was just blowing up to my dad. I think I didn't even have a shower in that. I think I just got in the car and I told my dad to drive home.
You didn't sweat.
Nah, he's just like, I think he knew why I was so frustrated. Because he used to come to every game, and he obviously wanted me to see me play. And I remember, like, I think it was literally that week after, one of my best mates' dad rang me, and he was like, do you want to come play some league? And I was like, yeah, I'll come and have a crack. And then that's kind of when the transition to league started.
True. That's so cool. Like in that time when you were going through like, the stage where you weren't getting played, was rejection something that was like weighing heavy over you?
Yeah, I guess so. Because I was always the best, like of my age growing up. So I was always used to playing. Like I was always used to being in the team.
Yeah.
Always used to playing, the whole game because I was the best of my age group. And I think college, because it doesn't matter what age, like there's no age group rugby. It just depends on if you're good enough to play at the highest level, you're good enough.
Yeah.
But I obviously wasn't that, good enough to play in the first 15. I was 15. Kids were 18, leaving school that were playing in the first 15. And I was just that little bit off.
Yeah.
And I feel like...
You were younger than everyone else.
Yeah. And I think I'd probably just dealt with that wrong, Like my career could have been a whole lot different if I just sat and waited for another year or so. But I was just a young kid, and I just wanted to play. Like a whole season, playing like 2 minutes here and there, and then going back to the second 15, which is like the second best team. Like I said, I wanted to be in the best teams all the time. It was just hard, and I just wanted to play. I was just wanting to play, and that's kind of where it all kind of
changed
across.
Yeah. Are you kind of glad that it happened though?
Yeah, I am.
Made that switch to NRL.
Yeah.
To league.
A little bit, but then a little part of me is like, what would have happened if I stuck it out? Seeing my mates make the All Blacks, and my age group, like the boys that were all on a similar level coming through, make the All Blacks, and do all of that stuff. I'm like, what would have happened if I stayed,
Yeah, it's kind of like that what if, hey?
Yeah.
Because you were so young. But I think like when you go through moments like that, it's such a shake of your confidence as well, because you're like, you start to like question, am I not good enough or whatever? Yeah. But I feel like in your case, it was just timing. Like you were just too young. And yeah. Take us back to your debut in 2013. What was that experience like for you?
Yeah, I remember like during the week, Justin Hodges was like, he had like a tight hammy. I thought nothing of it because I thought I was way off making my debut. And then I think in the team run or something, maybe in the team run, he actually hurt his hamstring. And I remember him walking in the sheds like angry as, like throwing his gear around the changing rooms and stuff like that. And then I just thought nothing of it. And then I went home that day and got a phone call from the coach, and he pretty much just told me that I was making my debut, not to tell anyone. I could tell my parents, that was it.
Yeah.
And I just remember like, I just couldn't believe it because it was just, the couple of years before that were really tough years. And to get to that moment, I was just like, I couldn't believe it. And then when I finally ran out, I was kind of like in a haze. Like I felt like I was in a dream. And it didn't take until like I got scored on for me to like kind of wake up and be like, oh shit, I'm here. Like I gotta start playing because Junior Sal got like a ball on my outside and I missed the tackle and he ended up scoring and I was like, shit, like I gotta be on. Like I can't, like miss anything. And we're playing the Melbourne Storm, so they were like hectic at the
Oh.
time. So they were obviously kind of trying to target me throughout the game as well. So I was just like, from that moment on, I was just like, I need to flick a switch here and stop like taking this whole moment in and just get in the game and do my job.
Yeah. How much did life change for you once you started playing NRL? Because you went from like living this normal everyday life to all of a sudden being put on this platform. So what kind of changed for you?
I think like before my debut, I was obviously like, I was a young teenager, 20-year-old, and I probably got caught up in the system a bit. Thought I was mad. I wasn't even getting paid that well then. I was, because I was hanging around all these big ballers, I thought I was a baller as well. So I was a bit of a clown, to be honest. And I think a couple of years, the 2 years before my debut were two of my hardest years. And because they were so tough, it kind of brought me back down to earth and kind of made me realize how grateful I was to be where I was. And that was kind of like the hardest thing to deal with, was like being, like just chucked into the system straight away and hanging out with all these superstars and thinking you're a superstar, but you hadn't even played in a game yet. And I was kind of like trying to juggle with that. And I probably done it so bad. But yeah, I was super young. And yeah, I think the 2 years before my debut was kind of a reality check to be like, frick, you need to pull your head in and focus on like why you're actually here. But it was such a cool experience, like being a professional sportsman, like just being able to, run out in front of thousands and thousands of people and everyone's screaming, like it's everything I dreamed for, and like just being able to like, go home, to my family after and just being a super normal person again. But whereas like at the beginning I thought it was like, okay, I got to live this, like paparazzi chasing me around, like all this stuff I was carrying on like a bloody clown.
That's so funny, but it's good that you could be honest enough to share that. You were talking a lot about the 2 years before actually playing for the NRL team. What was that struggle like for you? What were some of the things you struggled with?
So 2011 I tore my ACL in the second game of like under 20s, and that was probably the year that I was meant to debut. Like everything went well. I had a really good year, first year of under 20s. So my second year I was I was going to crack the NRL squad. And then I tore my ACL, so I was out for the whole season. And that was super like a big learning curve. I still didn't kind of handle things well. I was still that young clown that I thought I was one of these superstars that was hanging around them. And the second year I came back, done all the recovery and that, and done my ACL again in my first game back. So I missed 2 years all up. But the second time was a bit different. I wasn't like, still on my pedestal. I was kind of like, shit, I got to change everything I done last year. And I've got to like fully like lock in and focus on the things that I set out as a young kid to do. And that second year I kind of just like fully switched. I still probably didn't handle things well, still going out partying a bit, but I still like made sure that my main focus was not to be the superstar and the bright lights, was to be the footy player and have that first. So it was a big learning curve those 2 years, but it was worth it when 2013 came around.
Yeah, so true. What were some things that people might not know that you struggled with being so much in the public eye?
I think it's just, others perceiving you as like not human. I think like people just think because we are who we are playing, on the TV in front of all these people forget that we're, just like everyone else, I guess. And I think celebrities all around the world are the same, and everyone just kind of, I guess thinks of them as objects, and you can say whatever you want. You can, write to them and say, like, because we're so accessible these days as well with all social media and that. That was probably the hardest thing to deal with was being so accessible to people like that weren't fans, and just for them to say whatever they wanted to say to you. And that was probably the hardest thing to deal with. And that's kind of why I started vlogging in the first place. Was I had a nines tournament and I took too long to take a field goal. I think I took a second too long, and it didn't count. And after that tournament, I was just copying like sprays on my inboxes and stuff. And I was like, why do these people do this? And I was like, I'll start vlogging. showing them my life behind the scenes so they can see me as a human first and see that I'm not so much different to who they are. And I felt like that was the like breaking the barrier down for them to be like, oh shit, he's got like, you know, he's got kids, you know, he's like,
got feelings.
He's got feelings. He's just like us, you know, like, and that's why I started vlogging, to break those barriers down so people kind of didn't like just think of us as objects that they could, you know, poke at.
So cool. I love that you do that. And do you feel like since vlogging that's really helped, like the hate mail and stuff like that?
Yeah, I guess it's helped in a way, but then I feel like it's kind of at the back end of my career, I was always getting the like, oh, you focus too much on cameras and focus too much on vlogging, and like
you can't keep anyone happy.
Win. Yeah. And I think that's like a good message for anyone. It's like, no matter what you do in life, there's always going to be someone that disagrees, even if it's good or bad. Like, if you're doing real good things, there's always going to be someone that disagrees with what you're doing. So I think like if you're pleasing like yourself and you're expressing yourself in the best way you can, then pleasing others doesn't really matter, to be honest.
Yeah, that's awesome that you can acknowledge that, you know who you are and you're confident enough now to be like, okay, you disagree, like it's fine, I'm going to keep doing me. That's so cool. We kind of touched a little bit on this, but being a professional athlete obviously has its highs and lows, and injuries being one of them. Will you share with us some of the more difficult times that you went through with your injuries and what that was kind of like for you?
Yeah, so like I said, with those 2 years, they were pretty tough. They were big learning curves. I feel like the hardest ones were coming back from like a big injury and then having little injuries along the way. Like it happens a lot. Even last year, I tore my hamstring at the start of the year, and then along the recovery of that, I tore my calf like probably 3 or 4 times in that period.
Oh, no.
And those were those little ones, but they were like little 2-3 week injuries, which isn't big, but it's just like, like constantly changing your tire after, tire after tire after tire, and then
it gets exhausting.
Yeah, it just gets exhausting. You're just like, why am I doing this? And those were kind of the hardest ones. Like the big injuries are obviously tough, but you're out for the whole time, and it's the little ones that pop up along the way that are probably the hardest. But I was so set on what I wanted, and I knew that. And I love proving people wrong, and I was waiting for, like a lot of the times I was hurt, everyone was like, okay, this is it for him, because I had so many injuries, and I knew I had those people that I just wanted to prove wrong. I was super stubborn as well, and I hate giving up on anything. So like just fighting through those were pretty easy for me, because I was just set. Like once I got hurt, I'd like deal with it. I'd take it all in. I'm hurt. Okay, how long is it going to take? How can I like cut that length down? What can I do? What was I doing to get hurt in the first place? Like kind of just recognizing all the things that went into that injury, and then kind of dealing with it in that moment, being super upset at times with it, and then just being like, okay, sweet, like we're on, like get back on the path and just keep fighting until we're back.
Mentally and emotionally, what was that roller coaster like for you going in and out of injuries?
Also, it was hard. I was just lucky. I had Jess in a way. Like she understood my injuries quite well. She knew how I would deal with them. There'd be lots of times like I'd just get in the car after training, and I'd just be like sitting there sobbing, and I was like, sweet, I'll get home and I'd be like, I'm done now. Like that was my time to like reflect on everything, like which I just spoke about, what I did wrong, what I could do better. So once I was home, like, I was like back, I was back, and Jess was just more frustrated because she knew how much I wanted to be out on the field and play. Yeah. But just having her to kind of talk to and just be like, it's like, just moan, like have someone to moan to is super important as well. Because like I didn't want to come off, I didn't want to moan to my teammates, I didn't want to moan to my coaches, I didn't want to moan, but like moaning to her, like this fucking sucks being hurt like all the time. And her just being able to be like, yeah, fuck it, it does. Like it hurts. Like I can see it hurts for you. But just having that person to kind of whinge and moan to when I was hurt, like help my emotions deal with it a lot better.
Mental health and suicide are at dangerously high levels, especially in Pacific Islander and Māori communities, and especially in our men. Personally, what are your thoughts on this, and what do you think we can do better as a nation to help prevent some of this?
Yeah, suicide is something that's close to my heart. I had like a lot of close people to me when I was younger, commit suicide, and then when I moved to Aussie, I I think I flew home 3 times for people that were close to me that took their lives. So like it was,
That's a lot.
yeah, it's hard, and I think just it's so hard because we're taught from so young to, you know, and like just suck it up, stop crying, like stop crying. And I find myself saying that to my kids every now and then. And I'm just like, shit, like just let them cry. Like they can like scream the top of their lungs sometimes. And like at times as a parent it's super hard, but I don't want to be like to my kids, like stop crying, just stop it, like stop, that's enough. Because I feel like that's where it starts in kids, because like expressing emotion is so important, and being able to cry and being able to moan and being able to whinge every now and then is okay. And like especially to people that you trust. Like imagine if your parent, like, or your dad or your mum, your whole life it's saying to you like don't cry, like don't cry. When you're older, you're obviously not gonna go and whinge to anyone because you just wanna you feel like you got to do it for and suppress yourself. So I feel like it starts quite young on, and as a parent I think about it a lot. And it's hard. It's so hard because life's so tough. Even the last 2 years, like people are losing jobs and losing money and income, and like there's always a way back from, you know, losing money, but there's never a way back from like losing life. So it's super hard. Like there's no real answer to it all, but I feel like just being able to express your emotions. I feel like as parents, my generation coming through, we got to teach our next generation to kind of, you know, really do that and speak to us, speak to our parents, you know, speak to our loved ones, brothers and sisters that, you know, like shit's tough and that's okay. But like keeping it to yourself's like not okay, because you're just gonna get to a point where it's like this or that, and some people choose that, and it just there's no coming back from it.
Yeah, that's so good. That's such a good answer. And I think like growing up in New Zealand as well, I totally understand where you're coming from, like with the upbringings. And I don't know where it started, but it is just like this really like you have to be hard. Like even with me, with my family, with my aunties and uncles and mum and dad, it's just like you'll be right, like just be tough.
Yeah.
You know, tough it out, suck it up, you'll be good. Like we're taught to be tough at such a young age, but then it gets to a point where it's like we can't even talk about what we're going through because it's just been drilled into us that talking about our feelings or like expressing our feelings isn't something that we do. So that's cool being a parent now yourself. You've like realized that, you know, there needs to be some change in how we bring up our next generation. And
otherwise it just is a never-ending cycle.
And it's true.
It's always happening so much. And like you said, we're taught, so we pass it on to the next generation. It just keeps going and going and going and going, and there's no change.
You posted recently on Instagram about it being 1 year since your last pro contract, how you thought you'd be playing overseas somewhere. Then you made a comment saying, sometimes I feel like I failed my family by not getting another contract. I feel like I let them down. I love how honest and vulnerable you were in that post, first of all. And I feel like a lot of people would definitely resonate. But will you speak more into that post and where you were kind of at when you posted that?
Yeah, I think it's the questions that pop up like every now and then, like, oh, what are you doing? Like, what are you doing with footy? Like, I get it so often. And I guess it's hard because people have known me as one thing for so long, and they're always like, okay, where are you playing? And because I'm only 30, I'm still quite young and fit. Like people still expecting me to play. And I think like it was hard because at the end of last year, you know, I really wanted to stay at the Broncos, and that just didn't end up happening. I was like, we got our coach left last year. Our new coach was coming in that I thought was like keen on me. I had a few conversations with him, and I was just, you know, I was super keen to rebuild the club that I love so much, and that didn't end up happening. So like ending that on a sour taste was quite tough, and I kind of left everything in that one basket. Like I was staying in Brisbane. I didn't. Like all these offers, like overseas, all this other stuff were coming. I was just like, nah, I don't want to. I'm staying at the Broncos. Like this is, and then that didn't end up happening. And I kind of shot myself in the foot a bit because I wasn't exploring everything else.
That's loyalty.
Yeah.
That was loyalty to the club.
And like we were staying in Brisbane right up until our last week of the lease, because we were hoping that, I was going to get a call back and say that we're staying there, but that didn't end up happening. And then I wasn't keen to move overseas, like in the height of COVID and everything like that. And we moved down to my dad's, and I was just like to him, can we move in for a couple of weeks or a month, because I'm just kind of waiting for a contract.
Yeah.
Which ended up being 12 months. We're still there. But yeah, it's the hardest thing was like having little like offers there. Like because I was changing across the union and I made that quite public. Like a lot of like union teams weren't keen, because I was a league player, and that was quite tough. And I was like, did I make the right decision for my family changing across the union? I could have stayed in league and played it out, and right up until I was done, I could have taken some contracts on less money, obviously, but I could have kept playing in the NRL. I felt like another club would have wanted me, but because I was super open about changing across the union, I was like, so many questions, like, did I make the right decision for my family making that decision? Just because I wanted to have a crack at union, and I knew, like, I always said it, that I wouldn't be happy with my career if I didn't have a crack.
Yeah.
And like, and I'm always thinking like, it was that decision is what kept us, and my dad's for 12 months is what, hasn't, like, no doors have opened, is that like, and that's on me. And that post was just kind of, just addressing that. Like, I felt like I let my family down by making that one decision, because it's quite selfish of me making that decision. But I'm kind of happy in a way now that I made that decision, because I've stayed and I've created, Chur Media. I've, built that, built all these other things in my social media and all of that. I get more work from my social media that I ever got when I was playing. So I'm kind of happy that I made that decision. But yeah, like it was kind of a reflection post, after a year of being off contract, that I just was like, okay, was this the right decision? Sometimes I think, I've let the family down, like I said, and because, like we went from earning so much money and then around to nothing, like, well, not nothing, but nothing compared to that money.
Yeah. So
it's always a question I'll probably always ask myself, but one day I'll look back on it and I'll be like, I'm so happy I made that decision. And it was just a reflection post.
I love how honest you were about it. Like, honestly, so many people resonate with it, even like parents. Like, I'm a parent, but the pressure of making a huge decision, because you have to think about your family as well. It's not just a decision that you can make. But do you feel like you made the right decision?
Yeah, for sure. Like, it's crazy, the doors opening, like stuff's like happening that I didn't think would happen. I posted a couple posts last week about working with Sony. That wouldn't have happened if I dove into this, media stuff and like content creating stuff. Like, that wouldn't have happened. And that was like this little goal for me, like to work with Sony. Yeah. And they sent me like a camera, and I was just like, this is like crazy. Like, I couldn't believe it. So I was like, little moments like that, I'm like, okay, this decision was right. Yeah. A few opportunities happening next year, which is like another like, okay, like this is why. So I'm just like kind of lapping it up, and I'm kind of like, do I give, I was speaking to Jess, like I'll give rugby probably one more crack.
Yeah.
And I've been training my butt off to give it one more crack. I just want to be in the like top, like get my body as best as it can, so I can have one more crack like properly. Yeah. And then if that doesn't happen, then I'll be happy with it. Like,
At least you tried, eh?
Yeah, at least I tried. Yeah. But yeah, like stuff's just happening now, and I'm just like, okay, I'm extremely like grateful that I made that decision.
Yeah, that's so cool. I'm so excited for you. Like, you're doing so many cool things.
Yeah,
like
thanks.
You've been collabing with so many people as well, and I feel like you're just living your best life.
I wish it may look like that, but yeah, we're still living at home with my dad. So once we're out of there, it's just gonna be like a breath of fresh air, and we just can fully start.
No, I definitely think huge things are coming. Like, doors have already opened for you, so many big opportunities already, and like I'm so excited. But also, like you were saying earlier, how when you switched when you were originally playing union and then you switched to league, you were like, oh, did I make the right decision?
Yeah.
And now you're switching back to union and you're kind of like, am I making the right decisions?
Yeah.
I don't know. But, you know, this is your second chance. So that's cool that you've also got your backup plan as well. What advice would you give anyone that wants to maybe step into the NRL game or just become a professional athlete in general?
I feel like you got to, like, let's just put the NRL right at the top and you've got to work back from there. Like, what can I do to get there? And then just work your butt off. Like, if you're a kid, just do more than Tuesday, Thursday training. Tuesday, Thursday is not enough. You need to go out and do your own stuff. If you're bad at something, go and be better at it by practicing. I was super determined when I was younger, and I literally didn't have to have my parents like pushing me out the door to.
Wow.
I was literally down at the park all afternoon, getting home late just in time for dinner. Like, I was just super locked in, super focused, and I feel like I had less distractions in the 90s as well. Like, kids have so much distractions now these days with technology.
Yeah.
And I get that, but you've got to look at what you want and then kind of work back from there and decide, like even if it's if nothing's happening for you on social media at all, then just get rid of it, especially as a kid.
Yeah.
Build yourself up to get to that point and then start your brand after that, you know.
Yeah.
But yeah, just do more than what other kids are doing. I was so lucky that I had my sights set on one thing for so long that I never got in trouble, because I didn't want to tarnish like me, who I was as a person, or like my sporting career. Like, I was always like so well behaved in any team, and you know, I was always the hardest worker, and that paid off for me. So like, yeah, you just got to train your butt off and just make no excuses. I don't want, like, you can't use PlayStation as an excuse. You can't use social media as an excuse, because a lot of kids, they see the end goal, but they don't
want to work for it.
They don't see everything else behind closed doors. There's lots of NRL players out there, but they haven't posted about the hard work that got them there anyway.
Yeah, that's so true. So life after NRL, what's life looking for you right now?
Yeah, lots of things. It's been a juggle. Started like just diving into business straight away with True Media and content. It's been super crazy. I think the hardest thing is, like, in my world right now, is there's no off switch, partly because I'm doing a few things at once, and just like being a content creator, like, you know, you could be out shooting all day, but then you're editing all night, and it's just a cycle.
Yeah.
That's probably the hardest thing. Whereas when I was playing footy, you know, I was training till 12, and then I was done for the rest of the day.
Yeah,
I'd
you
go
could
do whatever
relax.
I want, go to the beach, you know.
Yeah.
But like, I'll get home from a shoot, and then the family will see me, and I'll be like straight upstairs onto my office. I'll be like, I gotta go and do this. Like, I have to, like, to feed you guys.
Yeah.
And that's been the hardest thing is the juggle. But my dad he keeps telling me, you just need to do one thing. And I'm like, I just, in the back of my head, I'm like, no, I don't. Like,
you don't.
I'm happy doing all these things.
Yeah,
like, I'm like grateful I'm doing these things. I know it's super hard, but
you love it.
I love it. Yeah. So doing all that True Media stuff. I'm looking to build the clothing like next year. So I'll kind of like, I've left it a little bit, and then next year I'll really want to ramp that up.
Yeah. But that's doing really well too, didn't it sell out in your first, like, overnight or something?
Yeah. Lots of like lines have sold out. I just don't back myself enough. So I'll get the stock in, but I don't order enough. And I just, like, I sell out because I don't order enough because I'm scared I'm going to be stuck with all this stuff. So I never order enough.
But that's smart.
Yeah. But like, because I don't want to make it to order and make people wait long. I just want it to be sent out straight away. But yeah, having that clothing stuff, all my social media work as well is really ramping up, because I manage myself as well. I don't have a manager being like, doing that for me. So I managed it all myself. And I think because I'm not in footy scene anymore, because there were so many loopholes in the, so many barriers in the footy world. You had to, like, get approvals from the club. You had to get approvals from the NRL. And then that had to come back to your manager, and they had to, you know, approve it, and then they'd get 20% of it just from getting it approved from the NRL and that. So it's like, yeah, like, I kind of want someone to do it, but then I'm like, I want all the money as well, all the money I can get. But after gaming, that's kind of, you know,
elite gamer.
Yeah, elite gamer. So I stream probably like 3 or 4 times a week.
Yeah, and that's huge. That's a huge space to be in.
Yeah.
Right now.
and that's kind of my me time as well. So I just get on there and talk shit like in my stream, which is good.
Yeah.
And then looking at like hopefully opening a gym next year. So that's another thing. Yeah, that's in the pipeline.
Let's go.
So another thing that's happening.
Cool.
And giving rugby one more crack. So.
And it's funny when you talk about like when you said your dad was like, why don't you just focus on one thing? Like, I feel like I'm the same. I'm doing so many things as well. Like, I work 2 jobs. I'm doing this podcast and there's other things that I'm doing as well. And people are like, what? You've got so much going on. Like, and sometimes I complain about it, but at the same time, I'm like, I love it. Like, this is my purpose. Yeah. All of them. All of them.
I'm the same as well. Why am I doing so many things? But I always relate everything back to my footy career. And I was always like known for being able to play in so many positions.
Oh, that's
and
good.
Like that kind of got me in the Kiwis. That kind of got me in teams that I wouldn't really make if I was just, if I was just one position.
Yeah.
So like I kind of relate that to my life right now. Like I'm having all of these things, but that's a good thing. Like it's not a bad thing. It's a good thing because I'm so like
versatile.
Yeah, versatile that I can do all of these things, and one day it'll pay off.
Yeah, man of many talents. I'm excited for the gym, by the way.
Yeah, it'd be cool.
So cool. What has parenthood been like for you?
It's been a massive change in my life. When Jayla was born, everything leading up until that moment, I was like, oh, okay, this is why. Like, I always thought like being a professional sportsman was the end goal. But like, once I got to, she was born in 2015, so just before we lost the grand final. And which is another story, but like everything up until that point, I was just like, okay, all my injuries, like me playing NRL, like all that was leading up until being a dad. Like I was just like, this was like my why moment. Yeah. And from that point on, I was just like, everything else doesn't matter. Like nothing matters. And like this, like these cars, this house, like being an NRL player, it doesn't matter. Like whatever, like, when it comes down to it, I'm a dad of this little girl, and like that's all that matters. So that was like massive for me because no matter what was going on in my life, like injuries or whatnot, like I'd always get home and be like, I'm a dad, like, and she doesn't care about anything. She doesn't care about the thousands of people screaming at me. Yeah. Like she's just trying to be the loudest and get me to look at her.
I have to ask this question. Your family is so adorable, by the way.
Thanks.
So the JKs.
Yeah.
So your JK, your partner's JK, the initials, and all your kids are JK?
Yeah.
So was that planned?
Yeah.
That's so cool.
It was just like coincidence that me and Jess were JKs.
Right. I know.
Crazy. And not like we're not even married, and like she's JK as well.
She doesn't have to change her initials. That's good.
So yeah, we were just, when we had Jayla, we're like, we call her a J name, and then we had Jude, so we found a J name, and then with Jax, we're like,
were you running out of J names?
Yeah, we're like, if it's a girl, we're gonna struggle.
Just call her J.
Yeah, because we call Jayla J, so it's just easy. Like on cards and stuff, we just write from the JKs. We don't have to write every name. Just little stuff like that.
I love that. I have a business proposal for you. I think keeping up with the JKs is something you need to put on your little planner you got there of all your things you've got going on. I'll watch it. I'll definitely watch it. That's so cool. I need to find someone that's AW to start my family with. AW, if you're out there.
Slide in.
What advice would you give someone listening who might be going through a dark season in life and feels like there's no light at the end of the tunnel?
Like we said earlier, I think you just got to find someone you really trust, and that will not kind of like, you don't really need answers. I think the biggest thing is you just need someone to vent to and share your emotions. A lot of people, like you go to a lot of people for help, and it's like, okay, you need to do this straight away. You need to do this. You need to do this. They don't kind of like listen to you. Yeah. I feel like you just gotta, and there will be someone. I think a lot of people don't think that there's anyone like that they know. But you just gotta reach out. Like you just have to reach out to someone that's close to you. I've got someone, my older brother. I'm super lucky to have him. Like when I'm really, really doing it tough, I'll always message him and be like, bro, I'm doing it tough. Like all of this, and he'll just be like, okay, sweet. Like he'll just kind of like what do you need? Like he'll just listen as well. Like, and because I don't really like talking on the phone or like FaceTiming him when I'm in a moment like that, so I always message him, and he'll like he wouldn't go and tell people as well, which is a good thing, I feel.
Yeah.
I feel like when people go and share with someone that they're really doing it tough, sometimes the other person can be like, okay, we need to contact all your friends, like
we need to get them all over and have a drink up.
And then everyone's knocking at your door, and you just, you know, like that's a good thing in a way, but it's like, just reach out to someone you trust. And even if you just start the conversation by like, I don't really need, like, I'm fine. I don't really need you to come over. I don't really need you to like tell everyone else, but I just wanted to have someone to vent to.
Yeah.
And just like write down whatever you want. I feel like self-reflection is a big thing as well. And I think sometimes we can, you know, get caught in a trap where we're like, okay, how do we don't think how we got in that position. And I think if we realize what you're going through and how you got in that position in the first place, and kind of just take a little bit of accountability as well, and be like, okay, this is what I need to do to get out of it. This is who I need to speak to. This is what I need to start changing. Like diet's a lot, like a lot of it as well. Like I feel like when I'm at my worst mentally, I've been eating bad, so bad. I've been, you know, like not exercising, and like sometimes when you're in that hole, you're not thinking about that. You're just like,
you're just thinking about the pit that you're in.
And a lot of the times I'm just like, I've been eating so bad. I haven't been exercising. I've been spending too much time on my phone. Like having that self accountability to be like, okay, let's spend less time on my phone. Let's try eating better. Let's try like go for a morning like a sunrise walk or something like that. Adding that to my day. I feel like a lot of that stuff will help you get out of that position you're in. Yeah.
That's so good. Oh my gosh. When you were saying the thing about eating, I was like, okay, that explains a lot. That explains why I've been feeling moody lately.
It makes you feel good at the time, but like
afterwards,
keep doing it and doing it and doing it. You just end up down this path of like, hating everything.
We don't think about these things like, oh, when was the last time I actually exercised? When was the last time I ate veggies? When was the last time I went out and got fresh air or went for a walk? That's such a good answer. Oh my gosh. Thank you. That helped me. Guys, if you're listening, you need to rewind that and listen to all of that again. Last question. What's your favorite podcast you've been on?
This one. My latest
You
one.
heard it here, guys. UnSpoken. Thank you so much for being on the podcast today. Honestly, like, it's been so cool just to chat to you, hear more about your story. I feel like you really opened up and you're like really vulnerable, and I feel like anyone listening, that's definitely going to help them. Like anyone who's going through a hard time or wants to, you know, pursue a career and being a professional athlete, like your story is definitely going to help so many people. So thank you so much for being on today. Like, I'm so excited for what's next for you and Jess and the family, and we're for you, we're backing you, and we can't wait to see what's in store for you next year. So
thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
Oh,
they can sing that. Go.
Oh no.
I'm not
Don't stop the camera.
Look at the thumbnail of it though. Yeah, he's the goat though, eh?
You feeling your body on somebody?
Ooh.
You change your ways with your crew. Act like you know, but you don't really know. Everything in your past, gonna let it go.
I'm not singing. I'm done.
Oh my gosh!
I'm done. I'm leaving.
I've been living day to day whenever I need a break. I can hear Moses say to me.